I love statistics. This week, I decided to record an audio only podcast episode for two reasons. The first is that I've been wondering about the impact of video podcasting. I noticed a climb in Spotify numbers, and I wanted to understand whether this was due to the general growth of the podcast or to the introduction of the video episodes. So, thank you, Spotifyers. This audio-only episode gives me something different to compare the recent video episodes, although naturally, one episode will not give me a conclusive answer. The other reason is much more practical. Video podcasting demands preparation, lighting, editing, and this week I've been incredibly busy. I have had two immediate column deadlines for the American magazines I write for. You can access copy of both online, a hard copy or a soft copy through Amazon. If you live in the United States, particularly in Manhattan, LA, or Florida, look out for Ageless Living magazine, where I write a quarterly intuitive astrology column, and Best Holistic Life magazine, where I write about intentional living. Although really, when I think about it, I would describe it more accurately as living awareness column, because awareness is not something we only read about or discuss. It is something we apply in the choices we make, the way we respond, and how we live every day. Which brings me to the subject of this week's episode: courage is action. Courage, faith, and inner conviction. How are they connected? Hello and welcome back to Unbox the podcast. I'm your host, Sahar Huneidi Palmer, and you're listening to season 26, episode 30, and today's episode is entitled Courage is Action, when inner conviction tells you to move. Oh yeah, we all like to move forward. What prompted today's episode was a comment I read on LinkedIn about faith and courage. Someone replied to a post saying that if you have faith, you will have the courage to act. It made me stop and think. Are the two necessarily connected? You may have deep religious faith and still find it difficult to raise your voice in a meeting and be heard. You may trust that life will guide you and still allow yourself to be overlooked. In your personal life, you may have faith while continuing to place everybody else ahead of your own. You may be experienced, highly qualified, and capable, yet you find yourself unable to cross the invisible boundary and claim your authority. Perhaps you are new to an organization, physically smaller than people around you, or working within a culture where the loudest person is often assumed to be the strongest. You know that you can contribute, yet something stops you from stepping forward. You may even be a leader who serves your team well, listens carefully, cares about people you work with, but still struggle to lead them when a clear decision is required. You can have faith in a higher power and still lack faith in yourself. Your spiritual faith may sustain you through difficult periods, but it cannot make your personal decisions for you. Self-belief develops through your relationship with yourself, your growing self-awareness, your willing to act on what you are aware of. If you cannot lead yourself, no one else can do it for you. This is where self-awareness and personal development become important. Well, that's what I'm really passionate about. You learn to recognize what is happening within you, you understand what is holding you back, and the next natural step is you take responsibility for what happens next. Let's talk about when awareness becomes action. We often speak about courage as if it were something we need to find. Wait until you feel brave, confident, or completely certain. Meanwhile, the proposal remains unfinished, the idea remains unspoken, and necessary conversations keep moving to another day. Courage becomes real when it is expressed through action. You submit the proposal, you raise your hand, you make the call, You state your position, you set a boundary, or begin the project that you have been thinking about for months. The action may seem small to somebody else. For you, it may change the relationship you have with yourself because you have finally acted on something you already know and feel within your bones. Awareness is essential, but awareness on its own doesn't change the situation. You can understand your patterns, recognize why you've held back, and you can see exactly what needs to change. Your life begins to change when that understanding translates into action. This is because real change is rooted in action. This applies to personal change as much as it does to business. A company or a government can commission reports, hold meetings, and discuss new direction for months. Eventually, somebody must make a decision and move the organization forward. The same is true in our personal lives. We can examine a situation from every angle, seek advice, and return to the same questions. At some point, what we have discovered needs to become an actionable decision. That decision requires inner conviction. So, how is passion and intuition connected? Facts are important. They help us understand what is possible, what the risks may be, and whether a decision is practical. But facts alone cannot tell you whether your heart is into something. You may have perfectly sound business plan and feel no real connection with the business itself. You may be offered an impressive position with a better title and salary, yet feel that it would take you further away from the life that you want. You may remain in a relationship that appears secure while feeling increasingly absent from it. On paper, everything makes sense. Within you, the passion is missing. Passion, as I mean it here, goes much deeper than excitement. It is the intuitive energy that makes a possibility feel alive. It's the inner fire that rises when the facts make sense and something within you recognizes the direction as your own. Facts help you assess opportunity. Intuition helps you recognize your relationship within it. When both point in the same direction, inner conviction begins to form. If you continue to hesitate, explore the decision further. Perhaps you need more information. Perhaps an old belief is influencing you. Or that the opportunity is sensible but doesn't reflect who you are now. Perhaps you want the recognition associated with it more than the experience itself. Can you imagine yourself living it? Does it stir something within you? Does it connect with the person you are now and the direction in which you are going? When you have self-awareness, you recognize that stir. And when the fire rises, move. Really, for me, it's like this is how it works. You feel it in the core of your being, and that gives you the courage. So how do you recognize inner conviction? Think about arriving home at the end of the day. You open the door and the room is dark. You reach for the switch and you turn on the light. There is no long internal debate because you understand what the moment requires. Inner conviction can feel like that. The action is clear because the different parts of you are no longer pulling you in opposite directions. The action is clear because the different parts of you are no longer pulling you in opposite directions. You may still face unknowns. The outcome may require adjustments, but you understand your reason for moving. So how do we move from inner conviction to aligned action? Well, I think this deserves exploring further. What happens when your mind says yes, but your body doesn't move? How do you know whether hesitation means something, that something still needs exploring, or whether you're just postponing an action you already know you need to take? That is what we will explore next week through the 4 dimensions of change, or BEMA: body, emotions, mind and beliefs, and accountability to action. For now, I'd like you to remember this: faith may support you, but courage becomes real through action. Facts help you assess a decision. Intuition tells you whether it feels alive. When both come together, inner conviction gives you the clarity to move. Think about one area of your life today where you know something needs to change. Are you still discovering something useful, or are you just waiting for permission to act? When the facts make sense, your intuition agrees, and you feel inner conviction rising. Then move. Thank you for listening to Season 26, Episode 30 of Unbox the podcast. Please subscribe so that you don't miss next week's continuation, and share this episode with someone who may be hesitating over a decision of their own. You can find further material like my books, or book a strategic clarity session, and my newsletter at saharhuneidi.com. Until next Tuesday, have the courage to be you. Show up, stay true, make a move.